Welcome back to the jETTi Show. On this episode of jETTi Vlogs, we are going to be creating the largest mold ever for a tessellation. I've been making silicone molds for roughly about 6 years now, and this is my biggest challenge to create a large-scale mold. So I'm going to use all the different tips and tools that I would normally use in a smaller mold and amplify them into this larger one. Let's check it out. I'm really excited about this venture. This is a crazy occasion. Before we get into today's episode, I just want to say thank you so much for the love and support of what we did last episode. Today's episode specifically involves creating a large-scale mold. So we're going to go over the procedures on how we get this done with a couple of easy steps. We have a few steps to go over, but the first question is, why make a silicone mold from this tessellation? I want to use my techniques in order to create this silicone mold so that I can use more of the castings in the future. And also, it helps with the world building. As you can see, the size of the tessellation is quite large. It's roughly 20 by 30 inches. Now, I haven't made a rubber silicone mold this large before. It could get overwhelming, but in a few simple steps, you can create a fairly large mold as well. Purposes for having the silicone mold is so that we have documentation and we can archive our tessellation and then create more casts from it. With these casts, it can help with our world building. We can create different walls, different surfaces, break them up, turn these tessellations into different relics that we can play around with. And I'll show you what the result of that looks like from my show, Get Home Safe. Very simple process, but there's a lot of things that can make this a nightmare. So let's follow a few simple steps to go into this mold. So I start off very simple, like I would do for any kind of tessellation or any kind of piece that I want to create a mold for. I want to put it onto a base that's easily removable. So you need something like cardboard or some foam core to put your positive on top of. And when I'm saying positive, it's the material that you want to basically mold. So in my case, it's the large tessellation. So the first thing that I'm going to do is hot glue the tessellation to foam core and make sure that it's laid down very flat. Once your tessellation or whatever you want to mold is secure onto this foam core or cardboard, we have to make sure that the edges and underneath of that tessellation has glue on it. What I'm using to adhere is hot glue. It's super cheap. It's easy to rip apart later, and it's very forgiving if you do any accidents. So I have all of the glue directly on top of that tessellation, then I put it onto the foam core. What I have to ensure next is that all the sides and edges have hot glue on them so that there's no rubber silicone seeping inside or underneath of the tessellation. You cannot lack on this step. You need to make sure triple, quadruple, or even quintuple check that everything is sealed off. And think of the hot glue as a barrier to prevent the rubber silicone from seeping underneath of it. Because that's a big no-no in the mold making world. It's going to be, especially for this really large scale, it's going to be a headache to clean up later. So we're making sure that everything is sealed up. Can't stress this enough, it's super imperative for your mold to work. Now that everything is glued and sealed off, we're going to start creating, we're going to start creating a wall around the tessellation. Okay, everything's sealed off. All the hot glue is done and embedded, and it should feel like it's its own surface. But you don't want to add too much so that this hot glue shows up into your mold. So what I like to do is just spread it out a little bit evenly to ensure that everything's nice and smooth. I'm using foam core in order to build a wall surface around my tessellation. Now, you're going to notice that I am slicing and scoring the foam. What this does is makes the foam a little bit more malleable so that we're able to form and wrap around this unique tessellated shape. But if you ever made a silicone mold before, you may be asking yourself, why am I doing the extraness of scoring this foam core and wrapping around the shape? Well, the most simple answer is I don't want to waste a lot of silicone. I could create a large rectangle around it, but that would be such a waste of rubber silicone. I would be mad at myself for that step. Rubber silicone is not something cheap. It is actually quite expensive in this practice. So we have to be super duper smart about how we apply this to our rubber silicone. practice is already expensive as it is, so I recommend really conforming to the shape that you've already have or created and working your walls around that shape rather than to make a large shape. Because you're gonna have a lot of rubber silicone that's just wasted and you can't do anything really about it. And it also just makes your mold unnecessarily heavy. So do your best to make sure that that shape is really locked around the unique shape that you have for this mold. So after cutting and scoring everything that I need to create these walls around my tessellation, now I want to do the same thing that I did with the tessellation. I want to make sure that all this hot glue is really on the bottom of that, because this prevents leakage from slipping through the mold. Well, slipping through the walls. Okay, so I'm just double checking, right? After all the scoring and the hot gluing, I'm looking all around the piece, and I know for sure that if any kind of rubber silicone material or any kind of liquid goes inside of this mold, it's going to be secure within the walls. You really want to make sure that there's no leakage at all from this rubber silicone. Okay, we're getting to the most fun part about making a rubber silicone mold. Is the mixing and then the pouring. I thought I had a little bit of fun with mixing up different colors first prior to mixing them all together, just because that's just what I wanted to do. There's no real reason why this mold looks really funky and crazy like this. I just wanted an art object that, you know, existed outside of it being a piece, really. It's just something that I know I'm gonna have for years and something I look back onto and be like, oh, that was fun. I added even more color to this than I needed to. So once I'm checking that the relief is covered up high enough and that all of the rubber silicone is within that area and it's inside of there, then we're good. Okay, so now it's the next day. Now after the curing process, we can just remove all of these foam core walls. That's the reason why we use these. We can just rip them apart super duper easy. And now here's a little bit of ASMR of me opening and removing the rubber silicone mold. In the best way, we're just going to shake this mold off and clean up the little bits. Drum roll, please, Nika. Very essential for the process.